Hi my beautiful bookish friends, I'm Bowen and welcome to my June wrap-up. June was not a bad reading month. I didn't actively dislike anything that I read. There were a couple of books that were kind of mid, but I read 13 books in total this month, so let's go through all the books that I read in the month of June. So the first book I'm going to talk about is A Soul to Keep by Opal Rain. I gave this a 4.25 and a 4 spice rating. I'm not really sure what I was expecting with this. I don't know whether or not it's supposed to be dark, but I think it's way too sweet to be considered dark romance. Now, don't get me wrong, it talks about like eating people, and I'm not gonna lie, when I first heard that, I had a little bit of like a little internal giggle because I went to the Dirty Minded place, and then the scene happens where he literally eats a person, and I was like, oh, okay, so you mean devouring whole ass humans because he's a demon. Yeah, that makes sense. Alright, cool, got it. But this was surprisingly really sweet and really funny. And Orpheus, which is our 7-foot demon man that looks, I'm gonna insert picture, he looks like this, is actually a total sweetheart, and I kind of love him. I really enjoyed this book. Way more than I thought I was going to. Like, I thought I was gonna like it, but I was not expecting how incredibly just sweet and adorable, and how he will do literally anything to make his little human happy. I loved it. I thought it was really sweet. A bit long, over 500 pages, but I had such a good time with this. I really enjoyed it. Speaking of sweet cinnamon roll type men, the next book I'm going to talk about is Mixed Signals by B.K. Borison. I gave this one a 2 spice rating and a 4.5 star. This is set in the same world as Love Light Farms, and this one follows Caleb and Layla. The first book in the series is actually my least favourite, then this one, then book 2. Book 2 is my absolute favourite, but I really enjoyed this one. I have a weakness for adorably awkward cinnamon roll fictional men with dimples, and insert Caleb Alvarez to fulfill that exact need in my life. He was just so sweet, and he's had a crush on Layla for like the longest time, and he was fired as a cop for being too nice, and Layla is the baker in a small town. It's very small town vibes, but it was just so sweet and adorable and just made me happy in a moment when I needed a little bit of joy. I really, really love this. The fact that it's a cake on the front and not a croissant is kind of just rude, because he orders a coffee and a croissant every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on his way to work at the school. It's just, I love this so much. I love this small town. I can't wait for the next book in this series to come out. I think it comes out this month. I'm not 100% sure, but I love this couple, I love this series, and I just adored this. The next book I'm going to talk about is Guild by Raven Kennedy. I gave this one a 3.5 and a 2 spice rating. Now, don't let the 2 spice rating fool you, because this has a lot of sexual violence in it, or threat of sexual violence, but sexual violence does not equal smut, therefore the only 2 spice rating. But this made me deeply uncomfortable, because normally trigger warnings don't get me, and I get it, I'm supposed to feel uncomfortable, but I didn't like this. Like, I liked it, and I get it, and I'm intrigued with the rest of the series, but although I get what they were trying to do, I wasn't a fan. Like, you could have gone about it such a different way than it being as blatant as it was. And also, the male main character of Midas, because this is a King Midas retelling, apparently we like him later on in the series. I'm not sure why, because he's a piece of shit and is a misogynistic asshole, and I absolutely fucking hated him. Like, sit pretty on your stool and play your little music and just let the men speak. What? I'm sorry, excuse the fuck out of you. What? No. And for him being the male love interest, he's meant to have some redeeming qualities? No? He just comes across as really manipulative, especially of our female main character. Like, she was annoying in of herself, but at least she's annoying in the sense that she's going to have really good character development throughout the series, and I can see that coming. But this is giving the same energy of, you deserve better. If you go for this stupid piece of shit kind of man, then you are also the problem. I like the story, I like the plot. It was just a little much, and I just don't think being that much was necessary. Big trigger warning in this for sexual violence, because they don't talk around it at all. I might continue with the rest of the series, maybe, because I have book 2 and book 3 on audio, and sometimes I like to pick up just a random audiobook to listen to while I'm doing things. It's not really a series I'm going to gravitate towards, I don't think. Then we have Strung Along by Hannah Cohen. I gave this book a 3 spice rating and a 4.5 star. This book follows Anna and Brody, and Anna moves to this small town after she catches her piece of shit ex cheating on her, which is not a spoiler, it's at the very, 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 very start of the book. And this is where she meets Brody, who is a country music star who has come back to his original roots, small town, to rest his vocal cords after he damaged them while he was on tour. And it's not necessarily an enemies to lovers one, but they definitely get off on the wrong foot. And the banter between the two of them is just, wow, it's top tier. It's so good. I really enjoyed their little back and forth. This also has the trope of like miscommunication, in the sense of they're having a wrong number conversation over text message, but they don't know who the other one is. But they're also not really seeing eye to eye when they meet in real life, but they're getting on over text. I don't really know how to describe that, but you know what I mean, right? And I love that trope, that dynamic. It's just always so fun. And when they find out who the other one is, it's not really kept too much of a secret for long. But Brody is just so sweet with the acts of service and everything for her. Like the gift that he gets her, because she mentions it one time, he builds the entire thing. I don't really want to spoil what it is, but oh my god, that was so sweet. And he ends up driving her to work every day because she hates driving in the snow. He opens the car door for her all the time, to the point where he gets kind of upset if she tries to open her car door. So there does become a point where she just waits in the car for him to come round. It was really sweet and really wholesome, and I really love this book. The only thing for me is I don't think this couple will last past the last page, simply because of Anna's jealousy. And he's a country music star. You can't be with a celebrity and have severe jealousy issues. I just don't think that's going to work. And as much as Brody would try and calm that part of her, I don't think that's going to work long term, especially in the industry that he's in. But I did appreciate it that it was her that was getting jealous as opposed to him, because that makes a nice change of pace. But overall, I really did enjoy this book, and I'm very much looking forward to continuing this series. I think I should have read Her Greatest Mistake first, even though this is book 1 in a series, because Her Greatest Mistake follows Anna's sister, and there was a lot of references to that book in this one. But I really like Hannah Cohen's writing, so I'm definitely going to be picking up more from her. Next we have Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. I gave this one a 3.75 and a 1 spice rating. First of all, non-sticker can go fucking do one. But speaking of the actual book, this had a lot more plot in it than I was expecting. It gives very National Treasure the movie, but with Wild West vibes. It's a second chance romance between Lily and Leo. Lily owns this company out in the Wild West that does tours to find gold, because her father was a notorious treasure hunter and she's kind of piggybacking off the back of that. And Leo ends up on one of these tours with his friends that his friend planned. He knew nothing about it, and then he turns up and he sees Lily there, and they had an intense like fling when they were in their early 20s, late teens, and it's like a second chance romance between them. The romance is not the main part of this story, like at all. The plot is the main part of this story. I wouldn't actually consider this a romance. I would more say that this is a Wild West kind of almost action movie, but with a romantic subplot. Now, don't get me wrong, the plot was entertaining, and I did picture it in my mind as like a proper Wild West kind of shootout kind of movie, but I didn't really care about their relationship. I was more interested in them trying to find the gold, because that was just way more interesting to me. I don't think this is one that I'd ever think about again. I think it's a good, like, almost palate cleanser book, but it didn't really do anything for me. It was good, it was fine, but I don't think about this ever. So do with that information what you will. The next book I'm going to talk about is Dante by Sadie Kincaid. I gave this one a 3.25 and a 5 spice rating. But in this we have Dante, obviously, and Kat, and Kat's brother owes Dante's family a lot of money. Like a lot of fucking money. So, since they can't find her brother, Dante just takes her instead. And because Dante's not an entire piece of shit, she was trained as a nurse, and he obviously knows that. He did a background check on her. So she works as a nurse for helping people that were in the mafia and just trying to, like, remove bullets and shit. That's how she kind of pays off the debt. But then she falls for him because it's very forced proximity, because kidnapping. This is very Stockholm Syndrome, but make it sexy. This is a mafia romance. Now, I don't read mafia romance all that much, but it always just seems really overly dramatic. And I get that some of the topics brought up in this are very, like, serious topics, but I just don't think it's for me. I don't think I'm the target audience for these kind of stories that are very dark and plot heavy like this. Especially when it seems like Kat is confusing good sex with love, because those two things are just deeply not the same. It just didn't hit for me. I recommend it if you like dark, smutty romance. I am not a dark, smutty romance type of person. Smut, yes. Dark, maybe not. The next book I'm going to talk about is Only in Forever by Chloe Leese. I gave this one a 4.5 and a 2 spice rating. This is the last book in the Bergman Brothers series, and once I finished this one, I went back and changed my ratings for all of the other books in this series to a 4.5, because that sits them at a 5-star, with the exception of number 5, because number 5 gets a 4.75 because it's my favourite in the series. But I love this family. I love this series. It is just so sweet and wholesome and healthy. I love it so much. This book follows our last Bergman brother, our sweet baby boy Viggo, and Tallulah, who is Viggo's sister Ziggy's best friend's sister, if that makes sense. Viggo opens this romance bookshop, which has been his dream for a while, and he's kind of been putting off opening it because, you know, letting things you love out into the world is kind of scary. And he's put his heart and soul into this, and also all of his money. So now he doesn't really have enough money to be able to employ another person. So he strikes up a deal with Tallulah, who is an author, who is really struggling to write her second book, and she's kind of in a bit of a writing slump. So he agrees if she moves in with him into his spare room behind the bookshop and agrees to help him out in the bookshop, then he will help her write her book. And it's like a roommate's friends to lovers story as well. I really, really enjoyed this. This is just, oh, I love him. He's so sweet. We've been following Viggo and all of his shenanigans for the past 6 books before this, and I'm so glad that he gets his happy ever after too. This has type 1 diabetes and ADHD rep. Tallulah has type 1 diabetes and Viggo has ADHD. The representation just throughout this series for so many different things is just top tier, and I think it's done so well and with such care, and the relationships are just actually healthy and they work through their problems, and like sometimes there's like smidges of miscommunication, but overall they do all just talk about their problems. I love this big happy family. I love them all so much, and it's just such real love. And I feel like I'm talking all about this series as a whole rather than this book. But if you loved any of the other books in the series, then you'll love this one as well. I love Chloe Leese's writing. He adopts a litter of kittens and 2 dogs, so he is also a cat dad, which is just instantly more attractive. And he's just a hopeless romantic as well, who grew up watching his parents have this beautiful love story, who are still in love all these years later, watching all of his siblings fall in love, and he's just like, when will it be my turn? And he ends up falling for Tallulah, who had like this really shit example of love from her parents, so she doesn't really believe in it, and she kind of ends up growing and having her heart a little bit melted by Viggo, because don't we all? He's adorable. I love it. I love this. I love him. Can you tell I have a type? If he's hot and sweet and awkward, then I love him, evidently. The next book I'm going to be talking about is The Diviners by Liver Bray. I gave this book a 4.25. Like, first thing I just want to point out is this book kind of matches my dress, which I'm a big fan of. But with the book itself, this is YA, and I've not been having the best of luck with any form of like YA fantasy lately. So I was tentatively optimistic about this one because it is a very, very beloved story. And I listened to this on audio. It is so good. I was sufficiently creeped out by this. I was not expecting to be creeped out by a YA book, but damn, this one got me. Especially the audiobook, because I got chills. Like, the sound effects and the creepy singing and everything, so good. I've already started listening to the audiobook for book 2, but I'm listening to them on Spotify, and they're over 15 hours, so it takes me a minute. But this was just so good and so creepy. I loved all the characters in this, like Evie and Sam and Will and Jericho and Theda. I love the entire cast. And the one thing that people talk about the most with this book is the 1920s New York setting. They are not wrong. This is the only type of New York that I ever want to read about. 1920s flapper New York era. Because this was just so immersive in that like time that I felt like I was there. Like, I wanted to go and put my flapper dress on with the feather and everything and just live my best life. I'm so glad that I found a YA series on my bookshelves that I really, really love. So I can't wait to continue reading this series. It's so good. The next book I'm going to be talking about is Broken Bonds by Jay Bray. I gave this one a 1 spice rating and a 3.75. I don't really know how I feel about this book. I feel like it was frustrating, but I don't know whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, it was a college romance, and we know that I'm not the biggest fan of college romances, but especially when the female main character gets kidnapped and taken to this college by her fated mates, her bonds, and has a tracking chip put underneath her skin so they can always find her. And if she tries to take it out, it will explode. This happens at the very, very start of the book. I don't feel like that's a spoiler. Like, all of the characters were different. She's already tried to run away from them before, which is why they put the tracking chip in her. It's kind of giving bully romance vibes because it's a very why choose kind of story. I think there's 5 of them in total. And I think I would be interested in continuing the series because I do want to know where it goes from here. But the main character herself, whose name is Oleander, which every time I read it, my brain just read it as coriander, which, odd choice, but sure, let's roll with it, was really, really annoying. And I get why she's really annoying, but it was very, oh, woe is me, and my bonds don't find me attractive, and blah, 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 blah. She got on my nerves. I feel like later on in the series she would grow on me, but do I want to put myself through that? I'm not sure. I understand why everyone likes this, but I feel like this is one of those books where you have to read the entire series to understand the merit of the story, because just book 1, it was fine, but it didn't really get me. Like, I'm hooked enough to continue it, but I'm not in a rush. Next we have Aaron's Mate by Abigail Rains. This one I gave a 2 spice rating and a 3.25 star. For a shifter romance, this didn't really have the whole alpha energy thing that I come to expect with shifter romances, but I'm not mad about that. Honestly, it was kind of a refreshing change of pace. He was the youngest out of all of his brothers, which have books later on in the series, which makes him come across as a lot younger than he actually is, and you can definitely tell that he is very youngest sibling energy. But there was one thing with this that just kind of confused me a little bit. I sort of get it, but also I'm very confused. Humans should not be able to procreate with shifters, unless they're descended from this one specific person, whom his mother was also descended from, as well as his mate, which would make his mate and his mother very, 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 very distant relatives, but related nonetheless. I get it, once the bloodline dilutes enough, then it's not weird, because we're all related way back when. Still a little odd, though. Like, I couldn't remove that itch from my brain reading this book. And that might be just like a small spoiler. I just couldn't get past it. Like, it was just a little weird. I mean, I like the couple themselves. I liked Aaron and Michelle, but I think this is one of those no thoughts in my brain book, which I needed at the time that I read it. Speaking of palate cleanser type books, the next one that I'm going to be talking about is Her Orc King by Zoe Ashwood. I gave this one a 4 star and a 4 spice rating. This was more smutty than I was expecting it to be, for sure. And I kind of wish it was dual POV, but I really enjoyed this. I'm very much looking forward to getting to the rest of the series. I don't really have a lot to say about this one. I love how Dawn and Grover slowly grow to respect and love each other. It was just a sweet palate cleanser type story, and I had a good time. I really don't have anything to say about this. This is going to be the shortest review ever. I liked it. It was fun. Then we have Pucking Wrong Number by C.R. Jane. I gave this one a 3.5 and a 5 spice rating. After receiving a wrong number text message, a famous hockey player, Lincoln Daniels, takes obsession to a whole new fucking level. Because he realizes that it's a wrong number, he wants to find out who this number belongs to. So he hires a PI, and then he stalks her, and then basically manipulates her into falling in love with him because he's so obsessed with her. And I feel like this plot is not a spoiler, because this is the thing I knew about the book before going in. I think everyone in this series gets a tattoo of some description, but the male main character gets a tattoo of her name on his dick. That happens reasonably early on in the book. I don't think I have the constitution for this type of story. I really don't. If you love it, I 100% understand, because the writing is so good and so engaging, but it just made me deeply, deeply uncomfy. Because the level of manipulation that he goes through gives her little to no autonomy. Like, she thinks that she's making decisions for herself, and when she tries to eventually leave, like she should, when she finds out what she finds out, like, she sees the red flags, she tries to leave the red flags, then he basically refuses to let her. And I get it, it's toxic, it's red flags, and some people are into that, and I'm not judging you if you are. This is just, it's not for me. And I was kind of scared, especially stalker stuff. I can't even watch like Criminal Minds episodes like that, because no, it makes me deeply uncomfortable in my tummy, and it makes my stomach spin the wrong way. No, don't like it. But like, I can appreciate the good storytelling in this and why people love it so much. I understand, I really do. I'm just not one of the girlies. I wish I was. I'm just not built that way. And the last book that I'm going to be talking about that I read in the month of June is At First Spite by Olivia Dade. I gave this one a 4.75 and a 2 spice rating. This was easily my favourite read of the entire month. I love this book. This book follows Athena and Matthew, and Athena was set to marry Matthew's brother, and then his brother ends up leaving her, and she ends up living in this tiny little spite house between her ex and her ex's brother, who convinced her ex to leave her. So she already doesn't like this guy, because he's the one that convinced his brother to just dip. But this was just really, really sweet. It does cover the topic of depression, specifically when you fall into the depression hovel, where even cleaning yourself becomes an actual mountain climb. That is very prevalent in this book. So it's a little bit of a spoiler. A smidge. Okay, I try not to put too many spoilers in these videos, but the part where my heart just melted into a puddle of goo was when she's in her depression hovel and he lives next door to her. He gets a ladder and climbs between the 3rd-story windows of their 2 properties to be able to get to her, because she will not open the door. And he finds her and he helps her, like, pick her up and put her back together kind of thing. And he's deathly afraid of heights. 3rd-story window on a fucking ladder, and he just so afraid, but he does it anyway, and I'm gonna tear up thinking about it. Like, this is just so dumb, but I loved it so much. This is easily my favourite Olivia Dade book. I cannot wait for the rest of the books in this series, because Matthew isn't really like the villain. He just knew that Athena and her ex weren't right for each other, and he was looking out for both of them. They were just so sweet to each other, even when they were kind of on the outs. Like, they weren't mean about it, especially, like, Matthew has no idea about any pop culture, anything. So she tries to teach him about, like, memes and movies and things like that. It was just so sweet and adorable and awkward. Again, my type is showing through, okay? I loved it. I loved him. I need more books like this. If you have any book recommendations with sweet, awkward, adorable cinnamon roll main characters, especially if they're the guys, drop them in the comments, because apparently this is just delicious to me. I love it. And that's all the books that I read in the month of June. So if you managed to get this far into the video, then leave a cinnamon roll adjacent emoji. I know there isn't a cinnamon roll emoji, so just anything that's cinnamon roll adjacent into the comments down below. But for now, thank you so much for stopping by. It has been lovely having you here. And I hope to see you in another video coming very soon. Bye.